As a fifth grade team, we had worked hard to deconstruct the standards for reading, writing, speaking, and listening starting about 2 years ago. And we had done a really good job incorporating all of the reading standards, and at the beginning of last year, we decided that we needed to start talking about the writing standards, and we were struggling with incorporating that into an all-encompassing program. And that's when we were presented with Wit Wisdom, and we looked at it and we felt that it had everything that we needed in order to make a well-rounded student.
I knew I wanted something where the kids had real books and it was quality literature. I wanted it to be aligned to the standards, but I had no idea what that would be. So when I was approached to try Wit and Wisdom, I was really excited because it was really good, dense literature, and all the kids have books.
And certain activities, you might go back to it within a lesson. You might go back to it a week later. And certain activities, even at the end of a module, you might have a task that you go back to skills or activities that you had done previously in the module.
I was a little nervous at first because it involves a lot of rereading of texts and staying with one book for a long time and one topic for a long time, and I didn't know if that would be boring to them.
At the beginning of the year, when I saw the content, I was absolutely terrified and nervous to teach these to the kids because all my kids are in third grade, but they're on first grade reading level, and these books are even hard for third and fourth graders, and the content was just so intense.
The students that I mainly work with struggle with written expression. They struggle with pulling what's in their mind, putting it on paper. And so this year we've struggled just writing one sentence, just writing down what you think.
And so we started Module 1 and we started our text that we were reading, and one of my classes were struggling. They were not able to have discussions as a whole group. They were not able to have discussions with smaller groups, and so it was literally like hearing crickets. We just could not seem to get across what we needed to get across with the text. So talking to other people, the thought was maybe we would change what we were doing. Stop Wit and Wisdom altogether, do MOE Max or text sets or something like that, a different curriculum, because these kids were struggling.
So we started this program, I was miserable, and then all of a sudden I wasn't miserable. There were times where I questioned why we made this decision. Like, why didn't we just go back to all the books I had in my cabinet? And then all of a sudden it just clicked for me and the kids, and it worked. And it's been great ever since. I'm completely on board. The changes that I'm seeing in here are amazing, and I don't know why we didn't have this sooner.
And as I'm thinking about it, teaching continues, and so I asked the kids to analyze a specific text, and they got into partners, and the conversation that they were having was powerful. They actually were able to answer the questions. They were able to relate back to the text, and it was like this aha light bulb moment where they were getting it. They knew what they were doing, and so it's been really great to see the confidence that is built with these kids in this year with Wit and Wisdom. They smile when we get into groups. They're excited to get into groups, and so I'm really happy with how Wit and Wisdom has transformed these kids into thinkers and allowed them to really understand and become part of that text.
Surprisingly, they have rose to the occasion, and they're doing third grade content plus more without a lot of accommodations. We do accommodate and modify still, but they are doing things like writing paragraphs and reading vocabulary like phosphorescent lights and stuff that I never thought that they would ever do.
I actually found that it ended up being really engaging to them because they were able to build on that knowledge and become experts about this topic, and so they were really excited to keep delving into it. Especially struggling readers, which a lot of people who joined the pilot were worried about because it's a challenging curriculum and the texts chosen are very difficult. And I know we're all worried about how we were going to meet the needs of all our struggling readers, but I found that since there's those layers of different texts that builds the vocabulary and the background knowledge, they're able to find success. And I think it's actually really encouraging for them to know that they're doing this really hard work that everybody else is also doing. Like sometimes they've been used to reading different books, and I think it makes them feel good about themselves to know that they're reading the same really hard books that everybody else is reading and doing a good job with it.
And so with this curriculum, Wit and Wisdom, the students have been able to pull those thoughts down onto paper, and they're able to produce writing that I have never seen. And they're very confident in their product that they've produced. They're able to write 4-paragraph essays.
And they really become experts, and that allows them to know many details to add into their writing. And I feel like over the course of the year, they have grown so much. Their ability to create multiple paragraphs is one of the things that has impressed me the most.
It's really a well-designed curriculum, and what we realized is that we really needed to let go of any concern with how long things were taking. The standards are very well embedded into every module, and we needed to just trust that if we teach everything that's really there, our students are going to be prepared for the next year.
I would have never thought that third graders would be fascinated by Galileo and discussing the contributions he made to the scientific community. But I've been able to have really quality conversations, and we're making connections to our own lives and to the scientists that we read about. So using Wit and Wisdom for me has been really huge, just because I've seen all the connections they've made, especially with their vocabulary. Every time we go to the library, my kids are coming up to me and they're like, oh, this said colossal. We read about colossal and we read giant squid. Or I had a kid bring up a Magic Treehouse book and he said, this takes place in the 1600s. That's when Galileo was alive. And so seeing them make those connections to what they're choosing to read, and really seeing them take ownership of their learning and learning some really cool things, has really been exciting for me.
I've also noticed them making better connections. We incorporated our social studies pioneer unit into this module, and when we did the end of unit assessment, their scores were so much higher than they've ever been, and I think that's because of the knowledge that they have now. I've also noticed in the library they're checking out more biographies and historical fiction and narrative nonfiction that they never did before.
The thing that I've really loved about this process, even though it's been hard, is that my students and I are doing something very difficult together. They're learning from me, I'm learning from them, and I feel like that as a learning community, we have grown, and students are seeing that they are capable of doing things that they didn't think that they could do.
So now my focus is on teaching in the classroom and really just doing my best with the lessons that I have access to and making materials that just frame those lessons. If I were to stop teaching Wit and Wisdom next year, I couldn't go back to the lesson plans that I had before. I'm a different teacher. I'm a different human being for teaching Wit and Wisdom, and I think through the lessons differently, and I think differently about really accessing the knowledge of the students with questions and just different approaches that I don't think I would have come into contact with had I not taught Wit and Wisdom first.